Please watch the video until the end. Chapter 1. The job that wasn't supposed to change anything. He had seen her on a Tuesday, in a cafe where she mended the world one barista smile at a time. Lila was not what he expected of those who took on odd jobs for cash. She was patient with messes, quick with a joke, and wore a kind of softness that made crowded rooms feel smaller. He, the narrator, observed without intruding. He knew how small decisions bend the arc of ordinary lives. Lila's new assignment was pragmatic and pecuniary. Marcus and Elise, anxious parents from a leafy suburb, wanted someone to help their only son become less guarded before he left for a distant college. They positioned it as an experiment, an awkward checklist to clear away the cobwebs of adolescence. Theo, tall, earnest, and painfully literal, had a way of answering questions the way you recite facts, not the way anyone tells a secret. Marcus had found Lila through a friend. Lila took the job because rent was due. She did not imagine the job would peel back her own edges. Chapter 2. Lessons in Unlikely Places. Their arrangement began like every carefully scripted charm. Coffee dates, small activities, a few staged lunches. The narrator watched Lila approach Theo with a disarming combination of theater and respect. An improv actor's instinct to listen and a teacher's patience to wait for the pupil. She taught him how to order without reciting, how to reply to small talk like a human and not a textbook. They practiced smiling at the mirror, and later, smiling at strangers on purpose. Theo's defenses were not walls so much as scaffolding waiting for someone to step in and hold a plank steady. Lila held it steady, then stepped back. It could have remained a clinical kindness. But kindness asks for little and gives much. He, the narrator, sensed the skittering of something tender in the space where they both worked. A lingering look at the end of a lesson, a joke that lasted a second too long, hands that brushed while moving plates. Those tiny breaches were where their hearts learned each other's shape. Chapter 3. Afternoons and Accidents. Summer collects afternoons like jars of light. Lila and Theo spent them walking through farmers' markets, rescuing stray dogs, and losing themselves in old record stores. The assignments blurred into an apprenticeship in living. The narrator found himself noting the small rituals that mark a relationship's beginning. A shared sandwich, an answered text faster than polite decency demanded, a playlist that only the two of them knew how to inhabit. He watched the first real accident. A rooftop party where Theo, drunk on unfamiliar attention, said something clumsy and cruel about the future. Lila's face softened into something like disappointment, and Theo recoiled because disappointment cut deeper than a laugh. It was the first real moment they saw each other without an easier filter. They both stumbled, but neither turned away. From his perspective, he could see how both of them tasted the possibility and fear together. Lila began to hesitate when Marcus offered extra money. Theo started to linger when he didn't need to. Mutual dependency crept in unnoticed, like ivy up a garden wall. Chapter 4. Secrets Told in a Bedroom Light. One night, when light was thin and the cicadas agreed to be quiet, Theo invited Lila to his family's old house with the excuse of returning a book. He, the narrator, knew better. Any small pretext can be a doorway when two people are ready to open it. They sat on a sagging couch, the record player humming a distant memory. Secrets arrived timidly. Theo confessed to a fear of hurting people he cared for, because he had been hurt too many times before. Lila admitted she had taken the job not only for rent, but to fill a quiet in herself she didn't yet have a name for. Their conversation looped from confessions to laughter and back. Touches became less accidental and more deliberate. When Lila turned toward him, the narrator saw how her shoulders relaxed, how Theo's mouth shaped a smile that had learned to be brave. He had been present for 1,000 smaller stories, and yet this felt like the one that would be remembered. Chapter 5. The Collision Everyone Feared. Real life is a clumsy editor. Rumors began to coil, as they always do, in the town's quieter corners. Marcus's pride bristled. Elise's concern swelled. Neighbors misread smiles and imagined impropriety. Lila felt the shift immediately. Conversations stopped at the wrong moment, invitations were rescinded, and Theo began to move away as if distance could salvage what uncertainty had threatened. The narrator observed the very human mechanics of shame and defense. Theo, who had spent months learning to speak, as if he was allowed to take up space, suddenly retreated into literal silence, afraid of causing disruption. Lila, accused quietly of motives she didn't harbor, found herself defending not only her choices but her heart. They argued. It was inevitable. The scene was messy. full of truth buried under anger. But the clarity that follows honesty came later. Theo admitted his fear of being seen as a project. Lila acknowledged the boundary she had sometimes ignored in her eagerness. Naming their errors unshackled them from more dangerous, unvoiced resentments. Chapter 6, A Quiet Promise and a New Beginning. After storms, quiet follows like a cautious friend. Theo left for college, and the narrator noted the small unsaid things that meant more than any grand confession. They had no dramatic last-minute run across an airport. They had a midday goodbye on a bench under a plane tree. They unpacked what they had learned in the months they'd spent teaching and healing each other. Theo promised to write, and Lila promised to visit. Those promises were modest and therefore honest. The narrator witnessed the way their hands found one another before the rest of them tightened and let go. It was not the end nor the beginning alone. It was a hinge swung open gently. In the years that followed, both changed in ways the narrator expected and in ways that surprised him. Lila opened a small studio where she taught people to perform small acts of courage. Theo learned how to ask for help and to laugh at the parts of himself that used to be armor. They came back into each other's lives less as rescuers and more as companions. Two people who had learned to be present in a world that often asks you to be elsewhere. The narrator, who had watched from the subtle corners of life, closed the tale not with judgment, but with gratitude. Love, he observed, is not always a blaze. Sometimes it is a patient rise, a careful tending of little fires that keep two people warm when nights are long. Please subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, give the video a like, comment your thoughts, and share the video with friends.